This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. This episode is brought to you by BNC Pro, the brand spanking new digital wealth platform featuring an all-in-one suite of customizable institutional grade applications that help you manage your crypto investments. Yes, research, chart, screen, analyze, optimize, report, and more. BNC Pro is the ultimate portfolio tool for individual or enterprise use. Streamline your workflow, manage your crypto, and master this brave new asset class your way with BNC Pro. Go to bnc-pro.com now to create your free account, or just look for the link in the show notes to this episode. Now, on with the show. My guest today is James Beattie. James is a risk capital specialist. He's a business interventionist. He's a trading executive, and he is the CEO of the Toronto Futures Options Swaps Exchange, a new Canadian derivatives exchange and clearinghouse that is currently seeking a regulatory approval in Canada. Welcome to the show, James.
Well, thank you. It's great to speak with you and to have this conversation.
Yes, and look, it's an interesting time in the world, James. Of course, you know, we're still in the midst of this pandemic, and 2020 has certainly thrown up a number of surprises, but it was great to wake up this morning. It's Tuesday, 28 July, just for reference, listeners, but it was great to wake up this morning, James, and see Bitcoin at around 10,800 US.
I have to say that the independence of the cryptos, as I'll call it, and their ability to generate a life of their own is ongoing and perpetuating, and validates the whole process.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, it's certainly interesting times, and so I'm sure it's interesting times for you as you put all the necessary building blocks in place to launch this new exchange. So just before we get into that, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? Let's hear a little bit about yourself, your personal background, and what kind of path set you on the life trajectory, if you like, to want to set up a Toronto Futures Options Swaps Exchange.
Andy, thank you for the question. So I've spent the majority of my career in capital markets, working with Canadian-owned, bank-owned broker-dealers, including BMO, CIBC, and Royal, all great institutions. And as you could probably relate to, as Canadian financial institutions, we build global, and we build because when we look at our exact population, we realize that there's a much broader world outside of us, and obviously to the south of us in the United States. So we build global platforms. That's how we think. That's how we act. Because if we were to build just for domestic, it doesn't give you the same sizzle. So it was on those platforms that I built a number of teams, groups, met some great people, had some fantastic results. And about 7 years ago, started working with private to public companies, giving capital markets advice as it relates to decisions about capital, decisions about strategy, and how to build, how to grow, but how to grow globally. And that's how I met the founder of tFOSE, a fellow by the name of Bill Yee, who had come to this country about 12 years ago with a strong academic and business background in investment management and asset management, and came to this country and built a bit of an enterprise around the education of investors and such, and wondered, why do we not have a robust derivatives exchange that would cover a broad range of clients and a broad range of people? So he and I met through this process and spent a fair amount of time understanding, talking, and getting to know one another. And his passion became mine. And now, as he reminded me, we're married, so let's get going.
Yes, indeed. And you use the term tFOSE there. So for listeners, we just should make that clear that tFOSE essentially stands for Toronto Futures Options Swaps Exchange, which is, I guess, a little bit of a mouthful when you try and say it like that, right, James?
It really is. And to be clear, we are building both an exchange and a clearinghouse. And we have, before the regulators in our country, the CSA, we have application to build both the exchange and the clearinghouse. So we are pre-approval. So this is all subject to approval of the regulators. Through the CSA, our lead regulators are the Ontario Securities Commission and the AMF, both in Ontario and Quebec. They've been fantastic partners, and we're working through that process and working through all of the administrative duties that are required to build an exchange which is transparent, which is regulated, which has oversight, which is meant to be a hub, an economic hub for what we believe to be global flows, and to access a much broader market than has been accessed in this country up to this point.
Sure, and I suppose from some respects, would you agree that Canada has probably been slow to bring institutional grade crypto asset trading products to the market? And I suppose that's one of the gaps that you're seeking to fill. I'm sure there's demand in Canada, but you hinted at before that you're not so much interested in building for Canada only, but the vision is a bit wider. So what's the vision for the business? What's your big idea here, and what are the gaps in the market that you're seeking to fill?
So there's a few questions in there. Let me start with the view of regulators as perceived by me when it comes to crypto. I believe the regulators in Canada, in Ontario, in Quebec, in our provinces, I believe they have put forward a definitive, affirmative effort to understand crypto, to build with the participants in crypto. It's incumbent upon the participants to understand that if you want to be part of the regulated entity, if you want to be part of the ecosystem, you have to understand process. You have to understand the entire due diligence process. You have to go through rules, regulations, and it's a lot of work. It's a heck of a lot of work. Now, the regulators in Canada, to be clear, if you look at the 3IQ ruling, which it was in November of 2019, if I'm correct, you'd have to check that. That would be Fred Pye's company, 3IQ. And the Ontario Securities Commission approved the closed-end fund, which is a long-only fund for Bitcoin. So quite frankly, I thought that was a very progressive decision. And it was in this province, and it was in November. Please verify that. It's all on the Ontario Securities Commission website. And so I say that the regulators in this province, in this country, are working progressively and overtly to ensure that what we build is consistent with good capital markets, AML, KYC, transparency, all of the rules and protocols that we've already learned. Let's apply them to this asset class, because from our exchange, from our perspective as an exchange, this is an asset class, right? We have other asset classes that we are going to be trading and building derivatives for, and crypto happens to be one of them, and one of them that we want to do because we will have regulated product. It will have to be approved. It will have to have and meet parameters for underlying volume, underlying design. It has to be commensurate with IOSCO principles and all of those type of things. So when I look at, and I just to go back to your other question, which was very much what is the strategy? Our strategy, and we're using cash-settled derivatives, our strategy is to bring tools to investors, both domestically and globally, that do not have tools to trade risk. Risk is a four-letter word, but it is not a bad four-letter word. And when you talk about risk globally, from an educational perspective, a regulatory perspective, there's always this underlying view that risk is a bad four-letter word. It's not. It's an important word. Let's manage it. Let's manage it overtly. Let's ensure that if investors are trading risk, they actually know what they're trading. There is no downside to being clear and transparent and giving the investor the information they need so that they're actually making a decision that's right for them, because we live in a world where men and women trade on their phone. They want control over their destiny. They want control over their financial activities. They do it over their phone. That being said, as incumbents in the industry who are regulated, we have to design products that are clearly understood, that are known. So our strategy is to bring tools, risk-based tools, that will allow industry participants to manage their risk, to trade it, to clear it in a cost-efficient manner, in one that allows them to bring flow and to bring flow to our exchange, and for us to bring to them services that include, you know, a much better outcome from their perspective.
That's good, James. And look, I'll come back to this idea of people trading on their phones, because you know that's you're exactly right. We've certainly seen a lot of that this year with the rise of platforms like Robinhood and the like, but I'll come back to that. But you're talking about risk, right? And of course, you know, you're exactly right. To make money, to increase your capital, you do have to take on a bit of risk. You know, that's just you know, the bread and butter of trading. So you're talking about cash settled derivatives, and crypto is just one part of, I guess, the wider product offerings that you hope to bring to market. So just quickly, do you want to just cover off the other trading products there?
So we'll be starting with crypto, and obviously we will build products that give investors the ability to have a high degree of correlation, a ability to trade as if it's an underlying, and to have that exposure and offset it. So that would be one aspect. The other would be option series around ETFs. If you look at any kind of an option series around what I would consider a US dollar security or something of that sort, we can build those so they trade in Canada in Canadian dollars, and will allow investors to have, you know, exposure to options on underlyings that would not necessarily be available in this country. Single stock. We look at other sectors. Obviously, we're very keen on things like emerging markets. Emerging markets are not well done, and we believe that given the constituency of our population, emerging markets are very, very important. And then, of course, we have the traditional, you know, commodity-based sectors in our country, whether it's gold, whether it's some of the energy-based, some of the others that would be related to that, and then financial securities obviously are key and important to any type of a derivatives exchange.
And on your website, James, you talk about, or maybe it's in your investment prospectus, so I've read it somewhere, you talk about how the Canadian exchange traded derivatives market, in your view, is ripe for disruption due to, I suppose, you know, a lack of local liquidity, high costs, high trading fees, currency risks, and a general lack of product innovation. So, of course, you know, that's going to be your view because you're a new entry into the market. But yeah, just tell me why you believe that to be the case, and how are you seeking to I guess, innovate and solve some of those problems?
Well, we have a very unique perspective in Canada, because we can look at the derivatives market globally as how it has traded outside of our country. And if you look at growth rates in the United States in options, futures, derivatives, etc. If you look at growth rates in South America, Europe, over the past 15 to 20 years, there have been explosive growth rates. Explosive. And if you look at the rates of usage that have been on our incumbent exchange in Canada, it's been a very flat, solid growth, basically a bit of a utility type-ish performance, you would say, from an investment perspective. If you take a look at that and compare it to global growth, that's actually a huge underperformance. So we look at what global derivatives markets have done over the past 15 to 20 years, and we see that there is precedent for this growth. If you look at our population in our country, we have a very diverse and dynamic population, incredibly well educated, and when it comes to trading and trading online with their own tools, very adept and very comfortable. And if you look at the rate of trading in this country right now, it would be analogous to going into a bank branch and the only service they offer you is a bank teller, literally. So when we put that in perspective, there is domestic demand that can help us fuel yet again another global growth pattern. We've seen this in cash equities in this country in 2008 with the disruption of the incumbent TSX, and that has been within 6 years this country had doubled volume in underlying cash equities. So we've seen this pattern in our market. You can see it in the United States. I mean, look at the Miami exchange. What a brilliant exchange. Or they have been in business, I would say, since 2008. And the growth they've put together and the product they brought to the market. Look at the B3 in South America. Again, brilliant examples of unique product, interesting product, giving investors tools that they want to trade and they can understand, and it makes a huge difference in volume. We haven't had that here on a transparent, regulated exchange.
Sure. Tell me about the, I guess the team. Then, do you guys see yourself as? Are you a lean, mean startup, or are you well capitalized already, and you have a big team and everything's in place, or are you running out of a garage, or are you in a swanky office building already? I just want to get a kind of a sense of how far along and where everything is at, and then we'll start to talk about the user experience and of course there is an interesting relationship between us here at Brave New Coin and you guys, but
yes.
We'll get to that. Yes. So where are you at, James? The team, talk to me.
The company was started about 2 years ago, and that was 2018. It was put together by a key group of shareholders who had a vision, the vision of which myself and a group of others continue to extend and build upon. That group immediately hired external counsel to start the application process for both the exchange and the clearinghouse. We are very lucky to be working with a woman by the name of Randy Pablo, who is well known globally in most regulatory circles. And she is at the forefront of our regulatory applications for both the trading engine and the clearinghouse. Randy has, 18 years experience with the Ontario Securities Commission and has helped a number of other new exchanges in Canada launch, build, and grow. And we are very lucky to have her at the forefront of that. So that's an important part because there's a huge amount of paperwork, documentation, effort that goes into making the applications and then moving them along. And it's interesting, you think, one of the questions that I get often is, why hasn't someone done this? Because it's a huge amount of work. That's why.
Sure.
And the end of the day, if you've got a nice, stable, utility-based return, and you're looking at that as your shareholder, you're saying, where do I want a huge amount of work? Well, you know where human nature will take you on that. So we have submitted the applications. We have a solid team of partners who have vast experience in capital markets, coming from the data side, from the market structure side, from the clearing side, from the trading side, and amongst us, we're all pretty adept at our different fields and working together to build our 5-year plan. What does it look like, and how will it grow? We are a startup. We are pre-approval and we are pre-revenue. Our offices would not be called swanky by any stretch. Our offices would be called efficient. Currently, our offices are at home, and again, very efficient, and we're operating incredibly well from home. Obviously, this is a very different situation, but I'm impressed with how well we've been able to continue to move our regulatory applications forward. We are in capital raise, and we continue to move forward our strategic advisor round. We have a solid group of partners at the table having discussions about what the strategic investor round would look like. Prior to that, the company embarked on a Series A, which was very well received by quite a significant group of friends, family, and others, and that has provided good funding for the company to build and grow, and now we need further funding to launch the technology and to move from there. We have some great technology partners and some other great partners, including Brave New Coin.
Yes, indeed, and we'll talk about that in 1 second, James. And look, it sounds like you have an incredibly well-resourced team, and you have the right people in the right places, I'm sure. One thing I imagine, and if you lucky enough to be embarking on that journey of setting up a brand new exchange with all the various trading products related. Setting up a new exchange in 2020, you can, I imagine, learn from best practice in the industry. You can learn from what other exchanges are doing and what kind of features and what the user experience needs to be for a contemporary derivatives exchange in 2020 and beyond. So I'd love to just touch on any of your thinking in that respect, and what are your considerations? What are you looking at? What are you building? Where do you think this goes?
From my perspective, we want to build products that will be regulated, that will be approved, and that will trade and will bring risk solutions to a broad spectrum of investors, not just institutions, not just accredited, but you have to have market makers, you have to have an entire constituency of individuals. By the time you're done building an exchange, you need 80 to 100 good participants, vendors, clients, etc., all at the table, all working towards building a global hub. So when I think about the ability to pull all of that together in 2020, which I believe is where we were going with this, it is, to be clear, Andy, it's daunting, but it is a worthwhile challenge. It's a generational opportunity in this country, and we've seen that because we have such strong support from our existing shareholders, and we hear that repeatedly when we're talking to bank-owned broker-dealers in Canada or institutions in this country who reiterate the need for competition in this country and for someone to bring a unique brand of products, processes, and opportunities, and to use all of the growth that we've seen in, quite frankly, in other asset classes, and digital crypto is an important part of that discussion. The user experience has to be simple, seamless, and it has to have the tools that allow individuals to trade, at a moment's notice. The old worldview of calling a broker and talking over the phone and all of that, in some cases, that's still the appropriate activity for some people in some situations. But, I see men and women in my office who have their phones in hand and they're trading their crypto position off their phone. So that user experience has to be there. And it also has to be, I believe, very much about products that fulfill their needs. There are some fantastic groups in the United States that I like to talk about. They would include groups like the Miami Exchange, the Small Exchange just launched out of Chicago, phenomenal group. And they're looking at what does that self-driven investor want. Because these are very sophisticated individuals. They just don't have institutional balance sheets behind them. But they're incredibly sophisticated. They know how to trade and they want to trade. So we have to give them those options because they will find a way to do this. So we need to build this.
And just on that then, James, just who's your target clientele here then? I'm sure there are different sectors within that, but yeah, just touch on who you see as the ideal target customer.
Well, at the epicenter of a great exchange, you have to have customers, clients who are active in trading risk. Men and women who are entrepreneurial, well-educated. They trade risk in their own accounts. They may be long significant illiquid assets such as real estate, strip malls, etc. And they want liquidity in other aspects of their overall financial dealings. That's one group. And then when you look to that group, you then have to give them options to trade, literally, where you have narrow spreads, where you have volume. In order to do that, you have to have market makers. You have to have global market makers who have a interest in the business, who understand the model, who work with you, who work with the clients, so that there is a fair outcome for both parties. So you have to have market makers. Then at the end of the day, you have to have institutions, because institutions have a significant involvement in exchanges globally. And we also have to have partners that would be other exchanges in other parts of the world, because global connectivity is a reality. From my experience, we do it all the time. And, I can tell you that many things have changed in my career, business-wise. The one thing that has never changed is people do business with people they like and in situations where they're comfortable. It's that simple. So give them that situation. If they do not want to talk on a phone to a broker, okay, great. Give them the option to have that interaction through their phone.
Fantastic. And of course, one of the reasons why you and I are talking, James, is because you guys at tFOSE, you've signed a multi-year partnership with Brave New Coin. So, Brave New Coin, most listeners, I suppose, will be aware that, Brave New Coin, as well as we have a crypto news team and website, and obviously we publish a podcast which you're listening to right now. But of course, Brave New Coin, we're really a crypto data company, so we provide data and index solutions for a number of blue chip brands, really, such as NASDAQ, the Beatty exchange, Dow Jones Factiva, Amazon Alexa. Even if you ask Amazon Alexa what the price of Bitcoin is, or Ethereum, or most other crypto assets, Alexa will tell you, and that is one of our data feeds. I'm going to do a quick demonstration. Listen to this. Hey Alexa, what's the price of Bitcoin?
One Bitcoin is worth $11,160 down 5.2% over the last 24 hours.
Thank you, Alexa. Easy as that. So apologies, listeners, if this is sounding like an advertorial. I don't mean to do that. I'm just trying to, I suppose, lay out the Brave New Coin data credentials. And the background here, of course, is my understanding is we're going to build, calculate, and administer a suite of crypto asset indices for your business, James.
Yes, you are, very much. And to go back to your point about, being an advertisement, you should be, because what you're doing is building sound, legitimate practices, policies, procedures. At the end of the day, a business is all about contracts and activities and if you do those things right, if you get the underworkings right, you'll have a better business. And that's why we partner with Brave New Coin, because of the due diligence process we've gone through with them and they've gone through with us. And to be able to build and bring to our investors a product that is unique, that gives them exposure to crypto and gives them exposure in a manner which they can trade and trade actively. And I have to say that the ability to talk about things like regulatory compliance, regulatory oversight, approvals, all of those have been part of the dialogue all along. And that's what we're building. And we need partners who will work with us through that process, because it's a big process. It's a hard process, It's 3 steps forward, 1 step back. And it's not, a straight trajectory upward. So that's why we have partnered with Brave New Coin. And that's why we are bringing something we believe is very unique, obviously to serve the needs of our domestic investors, but at the end of the day, to build a global hub from that.
Well, let's just dig into this a little bit. I'm fascinated, James, as to what's the background to this relationship. So, did you and your team identify a need for a series of index type products that would track the price of crypto assets, and is that when you started looking for a provider, and how did you end up, doing the necessary due diligence on BNC and going forward from there?
Well, what I've always said to our group is we need to find partners who are unique, different, and interesting. Same old, nobody cares. We're not doing it. We're not building bricks and mortar. We need unique, different, and interesting. We have to go find them. We also have to be realistic about our resources and the reality that we are a startup, pre-approval, pre-revenue. So we have to find partners who are in it for the long haul, who will culturally build with us as we grow and benefit from them. So we went out, we started looking around through the traditional channels. We know the data world pretty well through Jim Davies, who runs our data businesses. And we went out and started, we called people, pick up the phone, ask your peers, and do some research and look around, and made various calls. And your name was actually given to us by a party that we quite respect and quite admire. And that's how the conversation started. And it has been ongoing, as I think you well know, for almost a full year now. This was not negotiated in 30 days, right? This was a full year of discussions back and forth.
100%. And look, I won't give too much away here, because this will be your news to announce as all the pieces fall into place. But would you want to just provide any sort of hints at how many index products are available, or what kind of assets they will track, or anything like that, James?
Well, I mean, let's obviously we're going to go with the most liquid immediately. We will do in cash settled indices and have option series around those. And the objective is to have them designed with great clarity and great transparency, so you know what you are trading, so you know what you are, what your exposure is, what does it look like. And those products are yet to be approved and yet to be launched. But I have to say, it's about what does the investor need to manage the risk as it relates to crypto. And we can do that through product design. And we can do it in a compliant manner, and one where we seek and hopefully achieve regulatory approval. So that would be my answer.
I love it, James. Very, very nicely said. Well, let's just finish off then, and then we'll go to a break before we come back and finish off with the very famous Crypto Conversation hot take round. But just, I suppose, final thoughts, James, on just the next step forward. What kind of launch dates are you aiming at, and how confident are you that all the necessary regulatory boxes will be ticked and all that kind of stuff? So, when and where can we get going effectively?
Well, we are in active discussions and workshops with the regulators as we speak. They've been great partners, very thorough, very helpful, and we anticipate a public comment period potentially in the fourth quarter of this year, 2020. And given that we're operating from our homes and in COVID, I'm impressed with the focus and effort of Randy Pavlo and our team at tFOSE, and as well as the regulators and their willingness to respond in a timely fashion and to help us move this along. I would anticipate a 60-day comment period, followed by a ongoing dialogue with the regulators and a recognition order subsequent to that. Could you call it second quarter of next year? I believe that would be fair for me to say that, obviously subject to regulatory approval. It's only my own observation of timelines. And I believe that would be when we would be able to have these discussions in a approved manner.
Superb. Well, I'm sure that on behalf of myself and the wider team here at Brave New Coin, we certainly wish you the best as you proceed and move closer to launch. Let's go to a very quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll finish off with the Crypto Conversation hot take round.
Whether you're an enterprise fund manager or a retail trader, buying and selling cryptocurrencies successfully requires price discovery you can rely on. Brave New Coin's liquid indices provide trusted US dollar prices for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Ripple. Featuring end-of-day or intraday outputs, you can count on the BLX, ELX, and XRPLX for accurate US dollar pricing for smart contract oracles, settlement price discovery, net asset valuation, and performance analysis. Visit bravenewcoin.com to to find out more.
We're back, and I am with James Beattie. James is the CEO at the new tFOSE exchange, which is just in the process of getting the necessary boxes ticked for launch next year. James, I like to finish each Crypto Conversation podcast with a quick round of rapid fire hot takes. Are you up for it?
I'm absolutely up for it.
All right, let's have some fun. James, I just want your hot takes, your hot fire, take your best shot. Here we go. Been meaning to update some of these questions, but we'll do that next time. Here we go. Where do you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-coin opportunist spectrum?
Where do I sit? Well, I would say maximalist. I want to create controversy with my answers.
James, what would you say is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
The asset class is going to be here. It's here to stay. The participants should work in conjunction with regulators, and regulators should work in conjunction with the industry.
Yes, could not agree more. Okay, look, James, you're a Canadian and I'm a Kiwi, so we don't have too much say, but I do like to ask, who do you think wins the American presidential election 2020?
We could talk for a long time on this. Who is going to win? Human decency, common sense, logic will prevail. I believe that, and I mean it. What we need to do as capital markets participants is ask ourselves, when did we take social justice and elements of that aspect of humanity and divide them from economic prosperity? When did that happen? What I've seen happen in the United States is an unmitigated civil war, period. When you look at many countries, whether it's yours or ours, we have built diverse countries. We have populations. We build, we grow. We don't believe that we all have to, fit. Let's just be ourselves within this bigger growth. And you know what? It has proven our model has worked. So let's all spend a lot of time. To all of my dear friends and family in the United States, you know where I stand on this.
Very nicely said. Okay, let's change tack, James. Now, Bill Gates, he somewhat famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. What do you think the blockchain space, the crypto ecosystem, DeFi, derivatives, trading, what does it all look like in 10 years' time? Well, that's a big question when I put it like that.
That is a big question. What I would answer is think of the underlying, what I perceive as the underlying momentum for this sector, and that is individual autonomy over financial assets, liquidity, and flow. I believe that is the underlying basis. Options, optionality, and I'm not talking about, my company, I'm not talking about options for financial services. I believe that is underlying. Individuals, young men and women, they want to be able to pay for things, buy things, trade things as they feel, not as they're told by a financial services company or a regulator. So it is incumbent upon those of us who are part of that system to pay attention to this generation, hear what they have to say, and build something that is a better and more robust ecosystem, because it's here, it's not going anywhere else. It is here to stay. It will be personified, it will be part of our daily life, and we should be part of that.
Fantastic. Well, look, on a similar note, William Gibson said the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. Can you think of an example, James, of the future being here right now, but most people just aren't really aware of it?
Most people aren't aware of how capable they are to run their own business, run their own lives, and are overly and highly dependent upon corporations for their underlying sense of being, their underlying income, their underlying outcomes. And I think what we've learned through all of this time now is that all of those activities and decisions and such rest with you as an individual.
Time to zoom out now. what do you see as the long-term future for the human race? Hot takes only, but do you see dystopia or utopia?
I want utopia. I want utopia. That being said, the Margaret Atwood book, The Handmaid's Tale, which is a phenomenal TV series. Margaret Atwood is a Canadian from Toronto. She lives just around the corner. She wrote that book 25 years ago. 25 years ago, okay? And they actually film it in our neighborhood, so it's something that I really enjoy watching because I get to get little glimpses of our neighborhood. But when you watch that and you listen to it, there's such underlying elements of truth to it. And when I look at what's going on globally, whether it's in the United States, in the Far East, other parts of the world, Brazil, I see this global fear from governments to not let individuals be individuals. Harness their power, let them be who they are. They don't all have to be the same, they don't have to be uniform. And from that, we've come up with what I believe is a much better democracy, a much better outcome. And so I'm going to go with utopia. But those of us who are on the democratic side of the equation have to really step it up and really articulate globally our views.
Superb. You've articulated that very well, James, and it actually relates to the final question that I like to ask here on the Crypto Conversation, which is, what is your favorite science fiction book, film, show, or universe? You may have already answered that, but have another crack.
You know what? I'm actually going to go back to The Handmaid's Tale. I know it's
Brilliant.
it's so insightful, and to think it was written 25 years ago, that's a long time. And to think that things in there are happening, they are happening. We have a chance, when you look at what's going on in the United States right now, the United States has a chance to get this right. After all of the issues that have been incumbent in that country, they have a chance to get it right. They should look to New Zealand. They should look to Canada. They should look to, countries, Norway, etc.
Yes, indeed. And look, James, that's why I like to ask these kind of questions, which, on sort of one level, they're quite cheesy, generic questions. But one of the reasons that I kind of keep it that way is because it gives the guest, such as yourself, room to, perhaps express a personal opinion in a way that you might not normally on a podcast. So it's great to hear.
Thank you. And do remind everyone that those are my personal opinions, not those of my company, nor my external counsel, nor internal counsel.
Goes without saying. All right. Hey, look, this has been a lot of fun talking to you, James. We should do this again, perhaps when the exchange goes live, but we are done for now. There's really nothing else to say except the microphone is yours. Please take us out. Tell the people where they can go to find you on your various platforms and where they should go to find out all the necessary information and due diligence on tFOSE.
Andy, thank you for listening to the tFOSE story. To everyone on the line, please check us out online, Toronto Futures Options Swaps Exchange, tFOSE. I'm on LinkedIn, and you know what? In that LinkedIn is actually my phone number. Andy, no one picks up the phone and calls. I only get robots calling me. I never get people calling. Pick up the phone.
I love it. I would prefer you text me, DM me, email me, do not call me. I love it. Hey, thank you, James. All the best. Look forward to talking again.
My pleasure. Thank you for listening.
All right, that was today's episode. Thank you to James Beattie from the Toronto Futures Options Swaps Exchange, tFOSE. And they, of course, are currently seeking regulatory approval in Canada to offer trade cash-settled crypto derivatives. And yes, of course, Brave New Coin, that's us. We will be the crypto index builders for tFOSE. So we're currently designing, calculating, and administering a suite of cryptocurrency indices to power tFOSE's cash-settled options trading. We'll, of course, keep you in the loop as that project comes to fruition. And look, if you are in the market for a crypto data product, an index, or some other data solution, do come talk to us here at Brave New Coin, because I'm sure the team would be delighted to talk to you and build whatever product you so desire. Okay, that's us. That was today's episode. We'll see you next time. See you real soon. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave New Coin.